Hello, my stars. It's Kayla, and I'm here. Surprise? Now that my duties to Singto are over, it's time to get back to analyzing BL. And there's a lot. I've watched the majority of them, so I can tell you that much. Let's get to it. Today, I want to cover the very polarizing Japanese BL titled My Beautiful Man. Yeah. So first, let's hear a short synopsis of the story. My Beautiful Man is about a boy named Hiro who lives a relatively quiet life due to a speech disorder that causes him to stutter. In addition, he views the world and everybody in it with a sort of apathy, disregarding anything beyond the lens of his camera. That is, until the first day of senior year, when a handsome but arrogant boy named Kiyoi walks right into his line of sight, sparking an obsession that borders on idol worship. And Kiyoi, who has never felt loved despite his popularity, takes to Hiro in both honor and disgust, becoming a dominating force in the boy's otherwise dull existence. This series has some of the most dimensional characters I've seen in such a short format. When you have 6 episodes to tell a story, characterization can fall by the wayside. But even with that limited number, you're able to really get into the characters' minds and understand why they act how they do. For example, Hiro is a character who has struggled to connect with others since he was a child. He's been isolated all these years due to his stutter, and his parents leaving him for work must have felt like abandonment. And yet he never seems too perturbed by the fact that he's alone. Remember, nothing interests him except Kiyoi. If we delve into his psychology, we could say that he likes being degraded, treated as if he's this stupid, pathetic loser. As a segue into Kiyoi's character, we see that he feels just as isolated. As a child, he was neglected, and so he dreamt of being famous, a celebrity loved by everybody. He constantly rejects Hiro by calling him disgusting and a stalker, but in reality, he's projecting onto him. The person he finds disgusting is himself for having feelings towards Hiro and wanting to act on them. Even in the Year of the Tiger, BL characters are falling flat. So often we see one of two characterizations: the protagonist who can't do wrong, or the antagonist who only does wrong. And in part, I do think viewers are to blame for holding these fictional characters to unrealistic standards. But what about that gray area? I love Hiro and Kiyoi because they're flawed characters. And listen, I love my cute, easy viewing dramas that hold zero consequence. But I also love when dramas explore the human psyche in a way that we can all relate to. Seeing these flawed characters with problematic behavior forces us to confront our own flaws and shortcomings. In the case of My Beautiful Man, I think a lot of people slap the term romanticization on it without fully recognizing what the story is about. How their selfish actions and harsh words lead to disaster and self-reflection. There is no pretty ribbon wrapped around their toxic relationship, no claim that love is the cure for mental illness. Hiro and Kiyoi are two insecure, lonely people who project their traumas onto each other, and though they've done wrong, they find growth in healing. One aspect of this series that I found so important was the switch to Kiyoi's point of view in episode 5. And there's a particular scene that perfectly sums up his rationale, as questionable as it is. The story takes us back to that moment when Hiro admires Kiyoi as he sleeps in the classroom, except now we're seeing it from Kiyoi's perspective. After hearing Hiro call him beautiful, he says that nobody has ever been so sincere towards him. This is when we learn that we've had him all wrong, and that Hiro is an unreliable narrator. Kiyoi isn't a god, he's just a guy. As a viewer, we also see for the first time that neither of them are innocent, and it takes Hiro putting his foot down for Kiyoi to understand that if he doesn't change, if they both don't change, then it's over between them. This is why I say that My Beautiful Man does toxic right. Now that we've gotten all that deep stuff out of the way, let's move on to the slightly less deep stuff. So one thing I noticed throughout this series was the color blue. From every wardrobe choice to each filming location down to the objects they interact with, everything is blue. But that's not all. The entire series has a faint blue hue to it, not on Twilight level, but it's visible enough that I had to mention it. What's really interesting about this is how every shade of blue creates a different mood. For example, cyan blue represents peace and honesty, while indigo blue represents coldness and fragility. At one point or another, all these emotions are touched upon, and it's just so cool seeing how they correspond with whichever shades of blue are on the screen. It's things like color theory that really elevate the tone and aesthetics of a series. Since we're talking imagery, I'm dying to bring up the gun. By now, we know that Hiro isn't the type to lash out when he's bullied, but when Kiyoi becomes the target, all bets are off. Twice, we see Hiro's bottled up anger manifest into violent daydreams of gunning down their classmates. Is that not terrifying? My initial thought was that Hiro has trouble expressing himself verbally, and so he ends up imagining what it would be like to finally be heard in the most extreme way. When I asked my Discord how they interpreted those scenes, one of my lovely members thought it could be a coping mechanism for Hiro, who's had to repress his emotions throughout years of bullying. What do you guys think? Tell me in the comments. Before we end this video, let's give Koyama his moment. When you think of a stereotypical good guy, he's the type of character that comes to mind. He's just so kind and supportive as a friend, a colleague, and a brother. Sadly, he's a little too good for Hiro's liking. You can't help but feel sorry for him. Here's this Gentile who gets his hopes up only to come to the devastating realization that Hiro would rather be with an asshole. The tragedy of it. If the story was ever continued, I'd be curious to see his development. Would his character remain static? Would he even be included? We may never know. Thank you to the moon and back for watching. God, it's been a while since I've said that. Anyways, from what I've observed, My Beautiful Man is a series that people either loved or hated. And whether you fall into either category, I really want to hear your thoughts. What stuck out, what irked you, all that stuff. Remember to be respectful. This is a complicated series that elicits complicated feelings. If there's one thing we can agree on, it's that Hiro and Kiyoi need to go to therapy. But again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!